episode number 316 of the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. My guest today is somebody I had the pleasure to work with. Her name is Samantha, and she went through her own fertility journey and had co-authored a book called The Losses We Keep, The Journey of Fertility, Loss, and Never-Ending Hope. And I know that her story is going to really inspire hope in you. So I was really excited when she told me that she co-authored this book, because I was very excited to have her on the podcast to share not only her story, but also to share what the book is about and how it can help others going through the fertility journey. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. I'm Michelle, a fertility acupuncturist, here to provide you with resources on how to create a wholesome approach to your fertility journey. Welcome to the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Today I have some really exciting news. So I have done many fertility summits in the past where I've gotten lots of great experts in the fertility world together. And for the first time this year, I am creating a fertility empowerment holiday bundle. So right before the holidays, this is an amazing gift for yourself or for somebody you know. And this year I've teamed up with 14 leading fertility experts, including Mark Sklar, Amy Raup, Roseanne Austin, and many more. And this is an incredible value and an exclusive collection of courses from each one of these experts. The bundle includes mini courses, hypnosis audios, yoga videos, mindset techniques, breathing exercises, and so much more, all tailored to support your fertility journey. It has incredible value, but not just that. 3 lucky winners are going to get another extra bundle of amazing fertility supporting gifts. And one of those that is included is Mira hormone tracking device. So in case you haven't heard of them, Mira is actually one of those game-changing devices that can really help track your hormones so easily and conveniently. And they are sponsoring this holiday bundle. So not only do you get a chance to win Mira, but if you register, you will get a unique discount code that you can use that will give you up to 30% off with Mira just for registering. So Mira makes hormone tracking as easy as possible with their lab-grade analyzer offering over 99% accuracy for insights similar to a clinical lab test. With Mira, you can predict and confirm ovulation, identify your fertile window with precision, track hormones like estrogen, LH, and progesterone metabolites in real time. It's super easy. What you do is you collect your first morning urine sample, dip the wand, and insert it into the Mira monitor, and you can access your detailed hormone insights instantly through the Mira app. Whether you're trying to conceive, manage PCOS, or hormonal imbalances, Mira is invaluable for understanding your body with personalized, actionable data. I know that a lot of people don't like to go through the whole BBT charting. This is the easiest way to do it, and you can save just by registering. So you can save on Mira because you're going to get your own unique code that they so graciously provided for me to give to all of the registrants of this course. Plus, you're going to get a chance to receive a whole bundle of prizes. So to get more information on all the details and all the experts and what they are going to be providing, you can go to michelleorbitz.com/fertility empowerment bundle. That's all one word, fertility empowerment bundle. And in case you are not able to do that now, you can always go back to this episode and find it in the episode notes. So I am so excited. This is like literally just giving away information that has a total value of $8,700. We have major experts on here. and you guys are not going to be disappointed. It is way underpriced. And this offer will expire December 24th. So be sure to take a look at this sooner than later. So I hope to see you in there, and stay tuned for this next episode. Welcome to the podcast, Samantha.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to chat with you today.
Me too. So excited to chat with you. And I've worked with you before, and I'm excited to have you on, and super excited that you co-authored this book. And I would love for the listeners to hear your journey and really what inspired you to share your story with others.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to take a bunch of steps back and kind of share what led me to this point. I guess to start, my husband and I, wanted to start a family. And so like most of our generation, I was on birth control for 12 years. And in talking to my doctor about, starting to try, it was as simple as, get off birth control, start trying and see what happens. It should happen pretty quickly if you're lucky. So that's exactly what we did. Sure enough, we were pregnant within a few months of trying, which we were, very excited about, of course. And, just thought we were lucky in that it had happened to us so quickly. We, initially kept the news to ourselves for the first 8 or 9 weeks. And at that point, things had been going well when we went in for our first initial appointments. We saw the heartbeat. The doctor said everything was looking good. The first big milestone, of course, is that 12, 13-week appointment when you go in for the genetic testing. And, like I said, up until this point, we at first were being pretty discreet with the news, but we did start to share with close family and friends. We weren't shouting it from the rooftops yet, but we definitely, we were excited. And so we started to tell some of our immediate circle. And so we went in for that appointment, pretty naive. I think I had, of course, as a woman, you're familiar with the fact that miscarriages can happen. My mom had even had 2 miscarriages during her, after she had me before my brother. But it wasn't something that we really talked about. And it wasn't anything even in my immediate circle in terms of friends or close family members, anything that they had gone through. So I was pretty naive going in. I think we went into that appointment excited to just be in an ultrasound and see the baby. It had been 5 weeks, I think, since I had been in for an appointment. So we were just, excited to see the baby. And even when the nurse was doing the initial ultrasound, the baby came up on the screen. We were like, we didn't notice anything was wrong. We were just like very excited. And then all of a sudden we did notice that the technician went quiet. She was kind of dynamic with us in the beginning when we first came in, and then all of a sudden her demeanor changed right away. And then at that point she left to go get the doctor. The doctor came in and simply told us that we didn't have a viable pregnancy. And it wasn't our doctor, because it was like this genetic doctor that was doing this particular scan for us. So luckily our doctor was in the same building. So we're able to be like ushered in to see the doctor right away and kind of walk through what our next steps would be. But we were just very shocked. We were not expecting that to happen, especially, getting up until that 13-week mark is where we were at. So we kind of felt like, and I think also I didn't understand the concept of a missed miscarriage, which is what happened to us. When I thought of a miscarriage before, I assumed it was something that happened where you started to bleed and happened at home, and clearly like you were having a miscarriage. So when I went in there and they told me we didn't have a viable pregnancy, I didn't know what that meant, how that happened, why that happened. So it was all very shocking, I would say. So So it was at that point, we talked to our doctor. He recommended having a DNC, which is what we did a few days later. And, you go into the hospital, and that was my first time in that hospital where I thought we would be delivering our baby. And then you have to go in there
Wow.
and
Yeah.
remove the baby. So that was really, I guess, a surreal moment. And, to be frank, like the DNC procedure is pretty quick and painless, and you wake up and the baby's gone. It's not inside of you anymore, and you're just kind of left unsure of what to do next. They don't really provide you with any resources. They just send you on your way. And in talking with my doctor, he was like, we'll follow up with the results. Like that's part of the reason we did the DNC, so that they could test the tissue to kind of confirm, because they had he had projected it was likely a chromosome issue, but they wanted to make sure of that. So said they would follow up in a few weeks. And in terms of like getting pregnant again, it was really like, you could start trying as soon as you get your next period. It's up to you in terms of when you're emotionally ready. I'm like, well, how am I going to know if I'm emotionally ready? Like this was such a shock to the system. So, I think at that point I was shook for sure. And like I said, I didn't have anybody in my immediate circle who had been through anything like that. So I kind of didn't know where to turn. At the same time, I didn't really go out and seek a lot of resources, because I felt like, the way the doctor described it, it was something that could happen to anybody. It was a spontaneous thing. It's not an indication of there being a problem with you being able to hold on to a pregnancy. So just try again. And so I think I was just determined. I have a very, I think, type A personality, where I'm like, okay, let's just like get it done. Let's keep trying. We can do this. And so I was sad, of course, but I was also at the same time like so determined to just make it work the next time. And so we did really jump into trying again right away. And I think we were pregnant 3 months later. And, I think when you deal with a pregnancy after loss, you're robbed of a lot of things. There's no longer like an immediate joy of a positive pregnancy test, because it's like quickly followed with fear and anxiety that the same thing can happen to you. Going into an ultrasound is scary, because especially if that's where you found out about your miscarriage,
right,
there's this fear that you're going to receive the same news. And, all of those things were definitely building up in my head when we found out we were pregnant. At the same time, I just felt like surely it wouldn't happen to us again. I was sure that we had paid our dues, and like this was something that just randomly happened to us the first time, and that we would be okay. And even as the doctor, he had flagged a few concerns, things like the fetal heart rate, and the size of the sac, and those types of things. And he kind of just had us he had us continue to come back every 2 weeks to kind of check on those markers. But I still was like, no, this is going to work. And so when he told us at 8 weeks that it wasn't a viable pregnancy, I think I was even almost more shocked than the first time. And you would think that, okay, you've been through this, you know how to deal.
Right.
It wasn't like that, because after the second one, it was almost worse, because the realization set in that this wasn't just a spontaneous thing that happened to us. Like, to have these miscarriages back to back, I felt like, okay, something must be wrong. Either I've done something to deserve this and I'm being punished, or something is wrong with us where this isn't working. I think especially being in that short time window too. And when you see everyone around you, like I had all my friends were having babies at that time and it worked for them. Why isn't it working for us? So it was, again, a shock. I think at that point, I told myself, we need to slow down. We need to kind of understand if there is an underlying issue. We need to kind of reassess before we just jump into trying again. And I don't know exactly what led from the first to the second. And if we did try too soon, I'll never have those answers. But I just felt like we had to slow down and just reassess what was happening. So at that point, I started to go to a fertility clinic, started to have all the testing that they recommend for recurring pregnancy loss. And that took a few months. And through all of that, they said, everything seems to be fine. It's likely due to poor egg quality or bad luck that this happened, which is on one hand reassuring because when there's not a glaring issue, you at least know, okay, well, this is, there's not something, glaring that's preventing this from happening. But on the other hand, it's like, if it's bad luck, then why is this happening? And that's actually the title of my chapter is, if nothing is wrong, then how do we fix it?
Right.
Which is how I felt. You're telling me nothing's wrong. Well, then what is our path forward? And really, it was left unclear. It was, you could do IVF and potentially reduce your risk of miscarriage because you could do things like, the genetic testing and everything where you have more of a chance of having a healthy embryo. But that's not a guarantee.
Right.
Or if you feel more comfortable trying again naturally, you can do that. And so there was this sort of leaning recommendation towards IVF. But then you're like, well, this is a fertility clinic. Do they just want me to do the IVF? Is this really what's best for us?
Right.
So in hearing all that, you kind of go through, at least for me, I went through sort of a spiral of guilt around, again, why was this happening? If there isn't a medical reason, what is the reason? Kind of searching for answers in all of it. So I definitely went through spirals of why me. And I think what helped at that point was just like hearing other people's stories. And it really took a lot of effort for me to find those people to connect with on the topic who had been through it. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I didn't have anybody I knew personally who had been through it, at least on a close-knit level. So it was like taking to social media and being connected through friends to other women who had been through something similar and who came out on the other side. And I think that was what was most helpful. I did support groups as well. And I think that was also helpful in just having those regular touch points with people who are going through the same thing that you're going through and just got it. So I think between those two things, like that really helped with those negative spirals of emotion that I was feeling. And, in considering IVF, which was a big decision, it was talking to people who had done IVF and really understanding the process from them that sort of gave me the push to give it a shot. I think ultimately it came down to just what I thought best in my gut for us, like in talking to, my husband about it. And we felt like it was the right call for us. But again, it was a very hard decision. And I think, it was tough. But we ultimately decided to go through with the IVF. And I'm very grateful that we did because we were lucky enough where we had a successful retrieval and a successful transfer. And I'm currently 9 months pregnant. So that's kind of where I'm at in a nutshell. And what led me to the book, I had been connected. The lead author, her name is Jamie Christ. She was somebody I was connected to through my cousin who actually lives in Miami. And when I was in Miami visiting her, my cousin, that's when I went to see you when I was going through the fertility treatment. But my cousin connected me with Jamie as one of those women who had been through something similar to what I was going through to kind of talk through, different aspects of the journey and resources and things of that nature. And so we kind of just kept in touch. And then she was looking for authors to join her on this anthology project that she was working on. And I decided at the time I hadn't even found out I was pregnant. I didn't even find out I was pregnant yet. I was just about to transfer when I decided to do it. But it was something, during my journey, I had been journaling a lot and kind of writing about my experience. And I always thought, it would be great to share this one day. And so this felt like the right opportunity to do that and to start talking about it and sharing my story. So I joined Jamie and 8 other authors, including myself, on this book called The Losses We Keep, Our Journey of Fertility, Loss, and Never-Ending Hope. And it's just a compilation of our stories. So we each have a chapter and we share, what we went through. And every story is unique and different. So there's really something for everybody who's either going through it or knows somebody who's going through it. So it's really beautiful how it all came together. And yeah, that's kind of what led me there.
I think that's so beautiful that, first of all, I think there's something therapeutic about sharing your story and getting your story out there. Plus, that is going to help others. And it's kind of interesting when you were talking about your experience with a doctor, and it was kind of like you went and then they're like, okay, well, it's good luck next time. And then you're off with no
Yeah.
guidance whatsoever. And I hear that story time and time again. I hear it so much that I'm thinking, why don't they create some kind of like the mental health aspect? Why don't they create some kind of support for people? Because I feel like that's part of the whole process. I feel like it should be part of it. When you're going
Yeah.
through a loss like that, and it's often your first loss and you don't know who to talk to, and you might not have a community. Some people don't have anybody like at all.
Hmm.
So I just don't understand why I feel like it should be protocol for people going through it.
Yep.
And so that's why I love the fact that you actually wrote the story, because I feel like when people hear other people's stories, I think the biggest thing, and tell me if this is accurate, is just knowing that you're not alone, that you're
Yeah.
not like alone in this experience.
That's exactly right. And that was a big part of my why too. It was partly being therapeutic and kind of being able to get all of this out there and get it on the page and share it. But it was also being able to help other women feel less alone, because that was something I so needed when I was going through it, was to have that sense of community, or just hearing people who had been through the journey and who ended up on the other side. And that's a lot of what Jamie talks about too, and why she started this project, was because when she was going through it, like, yes, there were resources that you can find in books and things, but it all at times could feel sort of negative, and she
Hmm.
just needed the optimism.
Yeah.
And this is really, it's meant to be a beacon of hope for women who are
Yeah.
going
I
through
love
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it's something that is so needed, because I think when you're going through that, you really don't have any guarantee. You just don't know how tomorrow is going to be and like how
Yeah.
it's going to work out. And it's always kind of like having faith. Okay, well, my past has been disappointment and loss and hurt and pain. And so is my future going to look like that too? And then what I also thought was really interesting, and I think it's great that you bring up, is that when you talked about IVF and you considered it and all the different thoughts that you have, all these things that you think in the back of your head, like, well, are they trying to sell this on me? Like, these are
Hmm.
those little thoughts that we all
Yeah.
have, but we don't always speak, or kind of even acknowledge. It's kind of like sitting there behind everything.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking that, what I found really amazing with how you described it is that you assessed, you kind of sat with it, and you also addressed the fact that you're like, wait, rather than saying, okay, this is better luck next time, let me try again, because there's nothing wrong, and kind of going with what you were being told, you let your inner guidance, your inner wisdom, I call it. It's almost like our inner compass lead you to uncovering more. And you're like, wait, I'm not going to put myself through this again
Hmm.
before I get more information. And then also, when you got information, you assessed everything and you listened to your gut. I always talk to people about that, because even I, as a practitioner, cannot bypass that. Like, you have the intelligence inside your body, inside your mind, that guides you to what is right for you.
Yeah. I mean, that was a big, big part of it, because it was such a heavy decision, and you could weigh out the pros and cons all day long. But at the end of the day, it's just what you feel in your gut is right. And I think for us, and I say us because it really was a joint decision between my husband and I, even though it was my body. We just felt like we needed to try something different. What we had
Yeah.
done historically wasn't working. And, we trusted the doctor that we were working with, and we trusted the clinic. And I had done a lot of the legwork to get us to that point. I switched fertility clinics. I switched doctors even at that fertility clinic once I was there, so I felt like I had done so much to get us to that point, and
Hmm.
it felt like the right next step. I mean, there was certainly doubt in all of that because I didn't know. I didn't know what was going to happen. And the thought of IVF is scary
Yeah.
when you haven't been through it. You don't know. And I had never dealt with anything medically before either. So even just like being in and out of the doctor and all of that and dealing with doctors, I wasn't used to that. So that was something I really had to orient myself around and learn how to talk to doctors and advocate for
Right.
ourselves, like
Yeah.
with all the testing and everything, there were moments where I really did have to advocate and push for more testing and push for them to test my husband's sperm because there was a point in which they didn't want to. And, that
Yep.
doesn't feel good to have it be put all on the woman. Uh,
Totally.
so there was a lot of moments where you kind of have to, I don't know, you kind of learn and grow from it, I think. And that's at least what I tried to take from it. But it was all definitely a challenge. But yes, I agree that just listening to your intuition at the end of the day is what's going to push you forward.
Yeah, no doubt. And I know that the community was like a big thing for you too. It's just connecting with other people
Yeah.
helped you get strength, but also clarity, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think, like I said, it was in talking to other women who had been through it. And I think, I when you envision how you start a family, you never envision there to be challenges like this, miscarriages, fertility treatment, all of that. And so, because it was just such a new concept that you kind of have to orient yourself around, it's helpful to hear from other people who had been through it and can kind of help shed light on the experience and make you feel like, okay, this is actually a moment of strength and not of
Mhm.
weakness. It's not a moment of weakness that we are now having to resort to fertility treatment and we can't get pregnant the natural way, which I hate that, concept of natural versus, and medicated.
Because it's all
Um,
natural. It's a
yeah,
baby.
it's all natural, right?
Yeah.
And that was what I told myself in the end was like, I don't care the path that we get there anymore. I just want the baby in our arms. And so
Yeah.
whatever it takes to get there, I will do it. And that helped me, I think, come to terms with IVF as well, is that it's the destination that matters, not the journey.
Oh, I love that. I actually really love that you're saying that because it's true. It's almost like that. As soon as you surrender this how,
Yes,
it seems to make things a lot easier. Then
it
you're just
does.
like, okay, and then because you're moving with the flow of the how rather than resisting it at every point, because that resistance is only going to cause more stress.
Yes, exactly. And I think that was a big part of it when I was going through the testing and everything. It was like I was trying to gain so much control over every little aspect. I mean, and not even just with doctors, but in, the lifestyle changes that I was making and putting effort into my diet and the supplements and the environment, all those things that you hear
Yep.
about that are supposed to help with fertility. And I think there's definitely some merit to it, but at the same time, it gets exhausting just having to you want to
It's a
think that
lot. It's a lot
you
of
have,
pressure.
yeah, and you want to think you have some semblance of control over the situation, and which for me it was very much a coping mechanism because I felt such at a loss with everything that I was like, okay, if I do these things and I control these things, at least I can, feel like I'm doing something
Yeah.
and I'm getting momentum towards, the end goal here. But I think I became very burnt out by it all. And so I think the other appealing thing with IVF was like I can kind of surrender to the process and trust the doctors and just choose this as my path forward. And there was some comfort in that.
Yeah. Because it's almost like a plan is in place and you're just like following this plan and then you have a direction to go in.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And what are other coping skills that you found doing this? Because I know obviously community is tremendous. I know that that is really because we really need people. We're such social beings. We
Yeah.
need people. We need to hear that we're not alone. We're not the only ones thinking certain thoughts or feeling certain feelings. So having that community, it eases the load, that kind of
Mhm.
personal load. But what are other things that you've done that you feel have helped you in the process just for people listening?
I think therapy was a big one,
Yeah.
and finding the right therapist who, for me at least, who understood what I was going through and kind of had a more specialized focus in
Hmm.
everything maternal health. I had dabbled in therapy before, and I was seeing a therapist when I first got pregnant, but I decided to switch after the miscarriage and find somebody who, like I said, was specialized and, you know, I felt like could get me through the specific situation that I was going through. And I think that was really important for my healing journey, was having that regular touch point of therapy, of talk therapy, and just having an outlet to get everything out and work through whatever it was that I needed to work through. Um, you know, it's something where you have your friends and family and your partner, but you at the same time might feel like at least for me, I felt like a burden a lot of the time, like not really wanting to put that on everyone else around me. So having that like consistent therapy appointment was just always a good outlet for me to kind of sort through the ins and outs of what I was going through. So I think therapy was a big one. And then just like generally self care, whatever was going to get me through, whether it was like making that massage appointment or
Hmm.
whether it was related to fertility or not. I think just getting out for the walk with the good podcast and like prioritizing that, like there was no limits to my self care time, I think, during that window. Whatever I could do to make myself feel better in the short term or the long term was what I was doing.
That's so important because it's kind of like a self-soothing. I
Yeah.
think that that is a really good skill to have, to find ways to make yourself feel better. Sometimes that gets neglected. It's not something that we're actually raised to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes it's actually quite the opposite. We feel guilty about it. We're like, oh, well,
Right.
what are you doing sitting around? You're not doing anything. So you feel almost guilty about it. And it's a conditioning because it's really something that is so important, really, for our bodies, for our nervous systems. I often talk about nervous system because it's so important for fertility health, but it's also important for your emotional state as
Yeah.
well. And I also love that you brought up therapy, but specifically with somebody who is specialized in your specific needs,
Yeah.
which there are out there just for people listening. And you can find people who are very specifically specialized in this field and understand the process. They understand the grieving process and how, there's patterns to every type of
Yep.
emotion.
Yeah.
So I think
So
it's really
important.
important. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And I think also you'll talk to somebody who understands you specifically
Yes.
and what you're going
Yes.
through.
And it's that, and even now it's all connected. Like my therapist understands my journey and what got me to this pregnancy and now helping me through this pregnancy and all the other anxieties and fears that I now feel being pregnant after pregnancy loss.
Hmm.
Um, it's There's a lot of nuance to that. So having her as part of the lead up and into kind of where I am now has been really helpful. And even as I enter into postpartum, I think everything around motherhood, it's all there's and I don't I'm about to embark on motherhood. So
Hmm.
there's a lot to learn, but there's a lot of fear and anxiety. The worrying never stops. So um, I'm so grateful that I found the right person.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, your emotions and everything that you're going through, it doesn't just stop when you get to the place that you're looking to get to,
Yeah.
so there's always something, and it is really important to address because it will come up sometimes. And it legitimately is PTSD. I mean, so you're going through something, and then you were saying about going back to the doctor's office. Yes, because it's like the sensations, the lights, the visuals, all of the things, those are all
Yeah.
reminding us of the last time we were there and all the things that we went through in that time. So it's really important to at least even acknowledge that and know that those things can come up and that they're normal. Like it happens really. I can't even think of one patient that has not gone through that I've
Yeah.
worked with.
And that's been the challenge, is sort of having to like relive your past traumas. When it
Yeah.
comes to pregnancy after loss, you have to do the things that are hard, that remind you of the bad times. Like you said, going into those ultrasound appointments and dealing with being in the same room you were in when you found out about your pregnancy loss and how to get through that. And therapy did really help me with that, just kind of being able to ground yourself in reality and like, what do I know is true right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the fact of keeping, reminding myself that this is a different pregnancy with a different outcome, with a different story, was really important. And a concept I kind of picked up from therapy and also support groups and things like that. So there are all these coping mechanisms. At the end of the day, it's still hard, but
Yeah.
there's no way to go but through.
I love that saying.
Yeah,
It's true.
it's so true. And so, in order to get there, I had to get pregnant again, had to go through the first trimester, had to get through the ultrasounds in
Mm-hmm.
order to get to where I am now. So,
Samantha, you are so articulate. You're really good with your words. You were really good at
thank you.
describing your experience. I could feel the emotion in your voice, even when you're explaining it, like you really walk us through that exact experience very well. Like you
Thank
could
you.
really, really feel it. So first of all, I think it takes a lot of courage to express things or to speak about things that are so personal. And I know that you're doing this really for the benefit of people listening. So for that, I really want to commend you. I think it's just beautiful. And that's kind of like the beauty of life, is when you're able to take something that is so hard and so personal and know that you kind of like it's like alchemy, something that can be so painful could serve a purpose for somebody else hearing it.
Yeah.
And then just to also share in that, I guess, that human moment. So thank you so much for sharing that. And for people who want to read this book, how can they find it? How can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are available. The book is available on Amazon, or really wherever you purchase your books. And we've been out for about 2 weeks. So it's, fairly new out in the market, but we're excited about it, and hope you'll, whether you're someone going through it or somebody going through it, like I said, there's a story in there for everybody. So, we hope it touches you in some way. The best place to find me is Instagram. So I'm at Bonizzi. And yeah, I'm public on there, but send me a DM. I'd love to connect.
Awesome. I'll have all the links in the podcast episode notes. So if anybody wants to go in there, you'll find the website and the Instagram. And Samantha, you're just such a doll. Like I always liked you from the beginning when you first came in. You just have such a good energy about you. And I just,
Thank you.
I really,
Likewise.
yeah, I love having you on here and having this conversation with you. And then just the fact that you co-authored a book is just amazing.
Thank you so much for having me and, giving me a platform to continue to share. And it was great. It's been great to connect with you. Like I said, it was that one time, but you really left a mark. So I'm glad we can kind of stay in contact about it as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So that concludes today's episode. You can find all of the links mentioned on the episode notes. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to share and leave a review. Reviews mean everything to podcasters, and I really enjoy hearing from my listeners. You can also find me on my website at www.thewholesomelotus.com or email me at info@thewholesomelotus.com. I love hearing from my listeners. If you're interested and want updates as well as a free ebook on my top 10 fertility boosting habits, you can visit my fertility page on www.thewholesomelotus.com. I thank you so much for listening in and hope that you have a beautiful day.